right, welcome to the Integrated Man podcast. Good to have you with us today. I've got a special guest with me here today, Eddie Cage, and no, that's not a stage name. That's
the real deal.
That's the real deal. Like, you remember the movie Triple X?
Absolutely.
Xander Cage. Yes.
I get that a lot.
When Eddie and I first met, and my wife told me his name, I'm like, is that his real name or is that like a stage name? But good to have you here. Thank you guys for joining us as well. Integrated Masculinity podcast is all about challenging you as a man in your life and really just what it takes to level up in life. So, Eddie, give me a quick bio on you. Who are you? What do you do? A little bit about your history. Anything you want to share?
Sure. So, I've been born and raised in Illinois, northern suburbs of Chicago. Got to play, had an interesting childhood. Got to, my family was from a very poor area, and my mom got extremely lucky. She was on government subsidized housing, and she got an opportunity to live in a very a great area that it was a blessing to be able to live there. And so had a lot different upbringing than the one that I should have had if I would have stayed where I was supposed to grow up. After that, went to college on a basketball scholarship and played overseas for about 12 years in about 7 different countries in Europe. And then hung them up and moved back home, met my wife, started working, and now I'm working here as a campus director of admissions for a university.
Okay. Right on. You can't see this; it doesn't translate well. But Eddie's 6'8".
6'8". That's right.
Eddie's 6'8". So he's got a good foot on me, but you can't tell when we're sitting in the chair.
We're all the same height.
It's all the same. So I want to talk a little bit about European ball. Because that's pro, semi-pro.
Mm-hmm. It's pro.
It's pro. So European pro ball. Mm-hmm. So that's obviously. That's competing at a very high level. So I played a little bit of sports growing up. I wrestled a little bit in high school, but as soon as I started making some money, I was like, I like the money better than I do the sports. So I never was really coached at a high level. I never really had to perform at a high level. But I think something about performing at that high of a level translates to everywhere in your life. So what does it take to compete at that level? Because obviously to get a full scholarship to college and to play pro and get paid for playing after college is a big deal. That's a very uncommon thing. There are very few people I know. Let me just say this. You're the only person I know personally that has played at that level. What type of mindset, mentality, discipline, all of that stuff does it take to play at that level?
It does. It takes a lot, especially in college. And I don't know how it is today with the way things are. Just like in general, adults can't talk to kids how they used to be able to talk to kids. And so I was in the 90s when I was in college, and our coach could say anything he wanted to say to us. Like, he threatened to ship us off to a different school, kick us off the program, and things like that. And it takes a lot of discipline to do it. We had a really difficult college program as well. Like, we had, your average college basketball team are 15 players. Okay. And in my 4 years that I was there, we had 16 players that either transferred to a different school or they quit playing basketball altogether. Which is, because these are guys that spent their whole life playing basketball, but then they decided, because of our coach was that demanding, that tough. We called him the general because he was really tough, and so some people couldn't handle it. But like the guys that didn't make it through the program, we look back on those moments now and we laugh at it because we see how a lot of those things that he taught us translated over: discipline, hard work, integrity, and then we've been able to take that and apply that to our lives outside of athletics and sports, which was, and I think because of that was why I was able to play for 12 years in Europe, because it's very competitive. You only get typically 2 Americans per team.
Okay.
And then every year you have more kids that are graduating college that want to go overseas to play.
Yeah.
Plus the guys that are already over there playing, and everybody's fighting for those 2 spots.
Right.
And so it's a lot of pressure, and it's difficult too to be away from home, and it takes like a different level of mental toughness.
Yeah.
Which was, luckily for me, making it through my college program allowed me to have that mental toughness built up. And I think also a big part of it too, which is really helpful, is that at that time I was single, and so I didn't have a family back home.
Sure.
I know a lot of guys, they had like
easier.
Their wives, either they don't want to go overseas anymore, or their wives are like, it's time for you to come back home, and your family needs you, things like that, or guys get injured, so they have to cut their career short. But it's pretty rare. Like I played 12 years, and I was the only, out of all my teammates from college, and I made it the longest.
Okay.
Which I stayed very healthy, which was a big part of it. But then also too, I remained, because I was 34, 35 when I stopped, and I was still in demand for jobs. Teams still wanted me.
Wow.
And I kind of wanted to stop on a high note. I didn't want to, be the guy that was limping up and down the court and couldn't play anymore. And so
you don't want to be a Brett Favre.
No, not at all.
Let's go.
Not at all, not at all. So I went out when I still had a couple years left in me when I stopped, but I was happy when I did finally hang him up. I hung him up at the right time.
Yeah. So college in the '90s, playing basketball from Chicago. What a great. Glory days to be.
That was definitely the good days.
The glory days of the Bulls for sure. Yeah. So the toughness that your coach instilled, what did you have to do to dig deep, to match what he wanted from you? Was there anything specific, or
it was. I actually I drew a lot of, because my dad wasn't in my life growing up, and so it was my mom that raised me and my sister, and honestly it was her and her story, because she had us both pretty young. She had my sister when she was 15.
Yeah.
She had me when she was 21, and then when she was 24, 25, she decided to go back to school with 2 kids under 10.
Wow.
And that was back before online, and so she was going on campus plus raising 2 kids and working.
Wow.
And so I was like, man, if my mom could have gone to college plus work plus had to raise 2 kids, all I'm doing is practicing a lot, but practicing and going to class. I can do that. If she can do it, if she can do what she did, I can do what I'm doing.
Right.
And that really did kind of, through those tough times, I was like, I got nothing to complain about, because I'd rather be waking up at 4 to run at the track than to have to wake up at 4 to change a diaper or feed a baby. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I did. I drew a lot of my mental toughness from that, just kind of seeing the example that she set, and saying, if she can do that, then I can definitely. There's no reason why I can't do this. Yeah,
for sure. A lot of contrast. A lot of inspiration. Definitely. What was one of the toughest things for you in college ball? I guess let's just talk about the college section right now. What was one of the toughest things for you with college?
Really, it was the amount of work, the amount of pressure that's on these athletes and the coaches too.
Sure.
Especially now, because back then they made a lot of money, but now they really make a lot of money.
Coaches, you mean?
Yeah, the coaches do. Yeah, and so it's a lot of pressure, and you can feel that. And our coach would, at one point in time, my coach hugged me after my senior year. He hugged me and said, "Thanks for saving my marriage." Yeah, and so because he was living in a hotel actually that whole entire season, because basically we'd go on the road, he'd come back, and he'd be in the office watching film at 3 o'clock in the morning instead of going home to his family, his wife and kids. And I think she was tired of that, and so. But because of all the pressure he felt, he made us work. He said what he built his confidence on was that we're the hardest working team in the country.
Right.
And we used to joke, and we would say, kind of like what they say in the military, we would say that we do more before 9 a.m. than most students do in their entire day.
Sure.
Because a lot of times we would have 3 workouts before 9 o'clock in the morning, and then have to go to class. And so it's it was a big time adjustment. Plus, because I was one of their top recruits, it's shocking because when they're recruiting you, it's all, hey, you're great, you can do this, and we love you. And then as soon as you sign that first day of practice, it's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah,
we own you now. Like
yeah,
exactly. And it changed up real quick.
Wow.
But so I think that was just the hardest part. And our coach he was big on academics. His graduation rate was over. I think he only had one scholarship player that didn't graduate.
Okay.
And so it was very important for him also, the academics piece. I know some coaches, they don't care about that part, but for him, he really did care. And so we did have to work at both, not just the athletics, but also the academic piece as well.
Yeah, that's cool. Definitely wants to set you up for success, but that's something I don't even think about, like now that you know, it's one of those things. It's like now that you talk about it, it's obvious.
Yeah.
But you would think the pressure that they feel to perform, because they've got their bosses plus alumni plus boosters and all that are kind of steering the ship a little bit. To be like, you want that, you need to start winning. And then they feel that pressure. They're hearing it in this side from the boosters and in this side from home. Of like, you're never home and you're not winning, and it's just got to be this push-pull. It can't help but roll down to you. The intensity and the pressure that you feel, for sure. What about the pro days? What was toughest about the pro days?
The toughest about the pro days was just being away from home, because it's funny because people are always like, oh, you're so lucky you got to travel. And I mean, which I did, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't, we practiced. We only play one game a week in most countries, but you practice 5 days, and then you'll practice Monday to Friday, twice a day, and then you play on Saturday and you get Sunday off, and you get 1 day off. You're not going anywhere. You're just chilling and relaxing and recovering at that point. And so it wasn't glamorous, and just going to like Paris and in Rome and Greece, even though I've been all those places, but it wasn't like that was what the job was. Like it was, it's a lot of work. And when I first went over there, this was like 2002, and so the internet was just starting to get popular. I used to go to internet cafe once a week. Get on my, I have a Hotmail, I think, back then. And, send my emails home to my mom and some friends, and that was it. I respond just one time a week at an internet cafe.
Wow.
And then by the time I finished, you had like Skype and Zoom calls, and you could FaceTime and everything else. It was a lot different. So that was the hard part too, is just being able to communicate early on. It wasn't like I like, I'm like the old the dinosaur. Now, back in my day, I had to email once a week, and I didn't have internet in my apartment and that kind of thing. So that was probably the toughest part, was just being away from home and from the family, and acclimating to a different culture. I can still remember my first job I had was in Germany. And I went grocery shopping on a Sunday, and everything was closed. And I was like so angry, like, how can everything be closed? Like, how dare they close? Like, I need groceries. And then my teammates were like, everything here is closed on a Sunday. Wow. Like, there's nothing open on us. You can go to a restaurant, but you're not going grocery shopping. And then I was like, actually, that's pretty cool that they do that.
It is, it's no surprise that other cultures live longer than ours.
Very true. It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, they actually know how to slow down a little bit.
They really do. Yeah, they really do.
That's wild. So 12 years in the pro, that's respectable. Glad you stayed healthy. Glad you stayed in great shape. You get out. What's the like re-entry into normal life? Man, what does that look like? How does mentality, mindset, what was tough about that? How did that lifestyle change affect you?
Yeah, that was really difficult, because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I wanted to coach, but then I was like, I'm tired of moving around to different places, because it's the same for coaching. Those you can be Illinois one year and then New Mexico next year, and then Utah the year after that. You got to go where the jobs are.
Right. And
I was a little bit tired of moving around like that, and so I wanted to stay in one place. And I think that I think the hardest part was, part of me being able to play in college, but then also professionally, was that I felt like I called myself, I was a machine. Like I was a robot, and I know I didn't get hurt. Like I played through injury. I didn't want to miss practices. Didn't want to miss games. I didn't want to let anything affect me, and I was like, this is great now, but eventually I'm going to meet a woman, and I can't be like this.
Right.
This isn't going to serve me very well in a relationship to have this mentality.
Yeah.
Because I had to be cold. I had to be cold to a lot. I couldn't get homesick. I couldn't, feel pain and things like that. And so that was a big challenge, was, softening up to not be that way, to let somebody else in.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out like what I was going to do. After that was really challenging as well. I did come across a good opportunity, which it's been good. Hasn't been. I mean, it's not great. Like it's not not necessarily what I want to be doing forever.
Mm-hmm.
But it did. It's got me to the point where I'm successful at it.
Yeah.
It pays the bills, and it's worked out well. But yeah, it's still. But it's not necessarily what I don't plan on being at this university for. I'm not going to retire here.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that was the hardest part, was just trying to acclimate back, trying to figure out like my space, and which I probably still. I mean, I still have a little bit of the machine mentality in me, just because it's so deeply ingrained.
Yeah.
But I think kind of softening that part up a little bit was probably the most difficult.
Yeah. So where does that competitive mindset play itself out after pro sports? Where, like, in your day-to-day life, have you just buried it, or does it, where does it play itself out now?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I guess part of the good thing about my job when I started it was that I was an individual contributor, and so I had goals to hit, and
Sure.
I had a team of other people that had their own goals to hit, and that's where I was able to be competitive and say I'm better than all of them.
Right.
But then now, as an individual, now I lead a team, and so I have direct reports, and it's one thing that I try not to do, is let things roll downhill how my coach did.
Sure.
And so when I'm getting one thing drilled into this year, I don't want to put that on them then.
Right.
In the same way, and it's really difficult. It's really difficult at times, because they can. They do make it challenging, but that's where it is now. Is I still want to be, I have a team, and I want my team to be the best.
Yeah.
And then I want, because that's a reflection of me, and so if my team's the best, that means that I'm the best, and so that's where I've been able to kind of channel that competitiveness into my job now.
Yeah. No, and obviously you're a sports fan, wearing a Michigan hat, so there's a little bit of competitiveness with, Ohio State fans and stuff like that.
True.
I'm sure
Yeah.
that's a good area.
Yeah.
That's a good area to play it out. Some years,
some
I
years,
guess it's
some
a good.
years are better than others.
I'm
but
sure. I think the record is pretty slanted towards Michigan. Is that right?
Or I think I think
depending on the
overall,
sport, I guess.
Yeah, depending on sport. But football's been. I think it's actually pretty even for football.
Okay.
Like since like 2000, it's been mostly Ohio State, but in the 90s it was mostly Michigan, and then now we'll see what happens from here.
We'll see what 2026 brings.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly.
So a lot of the conversations we have circle and center themselves around masculinity, right? What it means to be a man. And I think in the sports arena, definitely you get a lot of guys trying to prove themselves,
Mm-hmm.
trying to show up, trying to, answer the question, do I have what it takes? I think that's a big question that men just kind of struggle with. What are some of the ways that maybe some guys you've encountered in sports and college and pro, maybe positively and or negatively walked that out in their careers?
Yeah, I think that I think that for me, I do feel like a lot of the guys that quit in college, I felt like that was like I was disappointed in them. I really was, and I do think that a part of it was I can't even count how many of the guys on our team had single or were raised by their mom only.
Sure.
And I do think that I think that, I mean, I know I was very fortunate in how my mom raised me, because she was very hard on me. She's very tough, and I know these other guys, they didn't have that same kind of an upbringing. And so I think that was one of the reasons why they did quit. And I felt like for me, just as a man, that I couldn't quit. I couldn't stop, because that was, you know, my responsibility to do so. And I don't think that some of those other guys had that in them, because of their upbringing, because it is difficult for a woman to raise a man.
Sure.
And I think that there were some. I really feel like most of the people that made it all the way through did have both parents. There was a couple that just had their mom that made it, but for the most part, it was guys that had both parents around. And I think that it's just, you know, a lot of guys, they wanted to be the man. You know, it wasn't just enough to be, you know, successful. They wanted to be like that guy.
Right.
And it would show up in that way as well a lot. It's just, you know, guys trying to, you know, insert themselves as the dominant one.
Yeah.
Which just breeds competition, which I used to love, because that's how we get better, is being able to compete against each other.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be the guy too. And especially when you go to college, because, you know, when you leave in high school, everybody that's playing Division I in high school was the man in high school, but then you go to college and you realize you got 15 guys that were all the man. So it's like, so who is like the real
top dog?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think some guys had a hard time with that, making that transition from being like the go-to guy, the star, to being like a role player.
Right.
But then at the same time, they didn't do enough to become the man either, which is a big part of it. Like if you don't have enough, you have to do something, pick up a new skill, improve something to get better,
right?
Instead of quitting. And so I think that's when you see the guys that shine through the most are the ones that they don't accept, not necessarily failure, but they don't accept their position where they are, and they keep on striving and pushing for more. Striving to push and be better, and they see, you know, like they say, iron sharpens iron, and so looking at who's better at you at something, and then try to emulate what that person does, do what he does, or try to do it better, so that you can become better yourself.
Yeah. So with that, you know, the mindset of being the best and proving that you're a man, and then being in an environment of, you know, 15 guys that are all the man, how do you not let your identity get wrapped up in what you do? And this can be whether it's sports, whether it's work, whether it's, you know, because I think I know guys specifically can look to what they do as a identity for who they are, right? Yeah. And that's usually the first question guys ask each other when they meet, right? So what do you do?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Hardly ever have I met a guy and him been like, so who are you? You know? Yeah. I think that's a deeper question, but it's an important question. How do guys like not wrap themselves up in the identity of what they do as opposed to who they actually are?
That is a good question. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think. Yeah, I mean, as an athlete, that was what I did and who I was. That really was all me. Looking back on, I never thought of it in that way, but that was my identity. That was That there was no, and especially in that sense, because at that time I was single too, so I couldn't say that I was a husband. Sure. I couldn't say that I was a dad. Yeah. So I was just an athlete, a brother, a son, and a nephew, and a grandson. Right. And so, at that point in time, it was my identity. So I am kind of curious to know, like, how, you know, for guys that did have a family, you know, a wife and kids, you know, with how they would answer something like that. Because, for me, that's all I was at that time. Now, of course, I kind of see myself just as now I'm a husband first, and I'm a leader second for my team. So like my identity now isn't, because my role is a campus director of admissions, but like I'm not That's not. I'm a husband first.
Yeah.
Before being that.
Yeah, and I think the core values and the integrity and all that stuff, when you really dissect something like that, because you can easily just latch onto one job or one responsibility or whatever. When you jump from one thing to another, you probably face this with the transition out of pro ball to, like, I guess civilian life is what you'd call it. But in that transition, you kind of go, okay, what makes Eddie Eddie? And many guys face this question and kind of get lost in the question sometimes of, like, man, I don't know beyond what I do who I am. Yeah. And it's a challenging question. I think it's one that's worth wrestling with. It really is. And you might not always have an answer to that. Like, it's I remember about 10 years ago, I had somebody ask me, like, if you had a day or a weekend all to yourself, what would you do? And I was like, I have no idea. Because I had worked myself into a place where I was a husband, I was a dad, I was a pastor, I was, everybody's friend. I was the guy who always came through. I was, the guy who had it together, the guy who always showed up, that sort of thing, where it was like all of who I was dependent on external things. Yeah. It was all external circumstances. And I couldn't answer that question. I was like, I don't know what I would do. And apart from what I would do, that's hobbies or activities or stuff like that. I think those are important too, because you have to know what you like and you have to know what you would enjoy. And I love pursuing things. I'm a dreamer. Yeah. So I'm always talking to you about some random half-cocked idea of, like, hey, what if we did this? Or how about this idea? And it takes a lot of time and mental energy, but behind all of that is part of me as a man. Like, I'm a dreamer. I like to think bigger than my circumstance now, and that can be disheartening sometimes. But it can also be like, if you're willing to take a risk, it can also propel you into a place that's like, oh wow, we really did that. That was a great thing. But I think the things that stick with you, like the core things, are the character, the integrity, the identity things that no matter where you are, the core of that makes you who you are, right? I'm a provider, right, for my wife, for my kids, but I'm also a provider for hopefully anybody that comes into my life that I can help in some way. I'm a protector. I love to protect the people that I love. We're wired like that as men to be protectors. We have strength for a reason, and it's not just to misuse it or to be abusive. Strength harnessed in the right direction is a powerful thing. It is. I used to, but I have this mentality of, like, back in the day, whether you were a soldier or whether you were a Viking, you're doing the same thing. Yeah. You're just doing it in a good way or a bad way. Yeah. You're either doing it to protect or you're doing it to pillage. Yeah. So the skills and the skill set are the same. You're slinging a sword and you're going to war and stuff like that, but you're either going to war in a way that negatively impacts people or positively impacts people. And I think those are the things that at the core really identify us for who we are. So coming out of that, what's maybe a rule of life that you have that maybe developed along the way that you apply every day of your life, some things that you do, maybe some disciplines that you do now that if a man's struggling with, like, man, I just feel like I'm wandering, or whatever, what's something that you personally, like, kind of have as a rule of life for you?
Honestly, there's so many great quotes out there and so many great teachings, and that resonate with a lot of them, but the one that I truly feel that I've lived for years is when Henry Ford said, "Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right." And it's that's what got me through college was that mentality, because it's your coach tells you got to do this. You're going to have 3 practices, conditioning at the track, a weight workout, individual workout, all before 9 a.m. And you're thinking the day before, like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that.
Right.
And then you get there the next day, and then you realize your body is doing it. It's pretty great. And so, and then some people struggle with that, and I see that on my team now. Is that I'll have like an advisor who'll say, the students I'm talking to are bad, and my leads are bad, and the advisor's sitting right now. Well, not sitting because we're remote now, but but the advisor on the exact same team, getting the exact same leads and business, is doing amazing, and they never complain about it.
Right.
And trying to impress that on people is a bit of a challenge. But that's one thing that it's I have 2 nephews. They're older now, but like I would never let them say that they couldn't do anything.
Yeah. Growing
up. And that's I've always lived by that. Just, if you have to believe that you can do it, because you can do it. And I think that's why it's so great with you, especially, is that, because you do have like that super creative dreamer mind, that you have a lot of amazing ideas. And that's something I wish I had, because I don't have like that super like creative, like dreamer mindset, which I really wish I did, because it's just so great to have that, because you get the chance to go after and pursue those things.
Right.
When you find the right ones and you're able to do it. But that for me it's a big one. Just always knowing that whatever I want to do, that I can actually do it.
Yeah. No, that's powerful. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Either way, you're right. Yep. Because your mindset is going to drive you towards either making excuses that you can't do it because you've already got your mind made up, or driving yourself to figure out a way to do it because you know you can.
And it's so interesting, because you see people when they make excuses, and you're like, how do you not see that you're just making these excuses? You think of solutions instead. I tell my team that. I say, listen, if you want to complain, you have every right to vent, complain, but also think about a solution to it as well, because I'm not going to just let you complain and think if somebody else in the team is doing it. If you need me to help you overcome it, whatever the case is, let me know. But you can complain, because it's important to get those things off your chest. I get it. You're frustrated, but this isn't going to be just you complaining and saying how terrible it is. I want you also to think of a solution as well too. Yeah.
I know I counsel a lot of guys, and a lot of them are, when they have a mindset like that, they're somewhere along the way. I'm a big advocate of internal work, right? Digging into what made you who you are. Yeah. And a lot of people I encounter with that mindset really just have this victim mentality that came from somewhere. Yeah. And if you don't address it, it will subtly drive you to be the victim all your life, and in every situation you're in. And it's kind of like, where does that mindset of you can't, or I'm not doing as good as everybody else, or whatever, where does that mindset play out other places in your life? Because if that's your lens of like, well, I'm just the guy that always fails, or I'm a guy that always finishes last, or whatever, that was a big, I don't know where I heard that from growing up, but the whole nice guys finish last thing, kind of like that, oh, woe is me, walking around like Eeyore, like, oh, woe is me type of thing. It's like, wait a minute, where did that come from? And where in my brain did I like latch onto that and make an agreement that,
that's your reality.
That's my reality, and that's how it's going to play out for me. Because I think if you're willing to like step back and take a 30,000-foot view of your life and go, man, this is happening over and over and over and over again, and somewhere along the way, I decided that this was just going to be who I was, and then make that shift. Whether that comes from like identifying the place that it's deep down from and dealing with it, which men don't want to do deep work.
No, not at all.
Like, what do you mean I got to talk about my feelings,
Yeah.
and not in that negative way, but like, yeah, what we feel does drive us. We don't like to admit that often.
Right.
We just stay up here
Yeah.
in our heads all the time, because that can be effective, right? It can be effective to get things accomplished. But if we've got this silent driving force that's like, I'm just a negative Nelly all the time, then that's just my world. That's just my life. And then it rolls itself into cynicism and bitterness and all of that stuff. And you just become this angry old man sitting at your porch yelling at the neighbors.
Get off my yard, kids. Get off my yard.
That's right. That's right.
I think that, you know, a lot of guys are scared to share those because I mean, I feel like, you know, for us growing up, it was just like, maybe further before that, but like probably like more like it would have been like our parents. I feel like back in those days, you know, the men would just they'd go to work, they'd come home, the wife would stay home with the kids, and the man would come home and read his newspaper in his chair, have dinner,
Right.
and go to bed. And you know, they never you know, they didn't talk, they didn't, you know, share feelings, things like that.
Yeah.
And so then that kind of got passed down, and that's what it kind of was for guys, is that we know guys aren't supposed to share their feelings or even have feelings,
Right.
For that matter, which I was like that too, and I was really good at it. And I still do a pretty decent job of it, but I haven't gotten better over the years. But it is difficult because you feel, I think guys just feel safe by not having to let those things out.
Yeah. And a lot of it I think can be a lack of knowing how to deal with it. Mm-hmm. If you've never done something before, or if every time you do something you just put it to the side and never really hold it and like look at it and know how to deal with it, you're constantly just going to be like, nope, that's not for me. Not going to deal with that.
Yeah.
I was the same way. You know, the men don't cry. What are you crying for? Men don't cry. Well, I'm crying because I'm emotional, but I get told at 8 years old that men don't cry. So I learn to just, whenever I feel an emotion, I tuck it away and gone, you know?
Yeah.
And it's been a journey of learning, like, why do I feel what I feel, you know? Mm-hmm. And man, I've got a 19-year-old now who he does a pretty good job of telling us how he feels. He's definitely not been, you know, our generation's not like we're trying to right the mistakes that we experienced when we were kids, and it's like sometimes he's too much for me to handle. Where I'm like, okay, you need to put that emotion away. Like, I can't deal with this right now. You're too much in your feelings. Get it out of here.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to become emotionally healthy is to go, look, I need to first identify that emotion and then kind of deal with it. You know, I give men this rubric for like identifying what they feel. It's sad, angry, scared, happy, excited, or tender. And it's like it's sachet is kind of the acronym for it, to be like, because when you initially, men go to anger.
Sure.
Usually when they feel something, but it may not be that you're angry. It may be that you're sad about something, or it may not be that you're happy or you're whatever. You may be feeling tender about something, and you don't want, like, tenders are really funky.
Yeah. So what is have you ever gotten somebody to say that they were tender?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because they feel like, and for the word is a little bit. It seems a little bit dainty of a word, but you know, usually a guy will say something like, I feel like my heart's been pounded on by a meat tenderizer, you know? It's like, oh, tender.
Yeah.
You know? Tender. So you feel like if in this specific area, whatever it is, whether it's your marriage or your relationship with your dad or your upbringing with, you know, a relative or something you dealt with in school or whatever, feels like every time you like touch that, you're like, man, that hurts to talk about. That hurts to think about. Well, then there's probably something there that needs attention,
Yeah.
that needs to be dealt with, that needs to be talked about in a healthy way, you know, with a safe person. So I think oftentimes guys will describe it different.
Sure.
But when you help give somebody a word for that feeling, like, oh, okay, I felt like I've been run over by a truck, you know, like, oh, well, that means in that area of your life you feel a little bit tender.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that is kind of an interesting word for guys to feel. But once you associate it, then you're like, got it. But anger is usually the one we go to because that's the one that we're more comfortable with. And honestly, that's the one that we've probably learned to control best. You know, and we can get angry about something, feel justified, whether we're justified or not. And we can either, you know, go to the gym and work it out, or we can, you know, in an unhealthy way, take it out on somebody close to us, or we can shove it away and not deal with it. So I think, you know, growing up in our era where it was like, nope, boys don't cry, we don't show emotion. You want to be a real man, you just got to swallow it down and deal with it, because we were raised by men who were raised by World War II men, or women who were in that, you know, in that era, who was like, emotion doesn't matter because it doesn't help us. But it's a real part of our life.
It really is.
And a real part of our journey. And I think the more we get into it, and the more we, you know, raise that emotional quotient. You know, we have that IQ and that EQ. The more we raise that EQ, the more healthier integrated men will be. And that's what we love to do at Integrated Masculinity, is make sure that, like, there are a bunch of parts of us that are connected that we like to compartmentalize sometimes. And the more we connect those, the healthier, you know, husbands will be, the healthier uncles, friends, all of that, fathers, brothers will be. So true. I think it's just a powerful thing to do. So we'll wrap up. Before we do, got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Always like to give something for our readers or listeners to write down. Give me one book that has changed your life.
Wow, that's I think, you know, my mom got me, when I graduated college, she got me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that book, it was interesting to see and read how, like, he was fortunate to have two dads that had a different view and mindset towards money, and how they treated it. And so I think that book was really one that I can think of that really kind of changed my life, just kind of hearing about the rat race, and the people that say, well, they're making 30,000. They say, well, if I just made 40,000, I'd be good. And then they make 40. Then if I made 50, I'd be good. And then and it's always the more they make, the more they spend. And that was always something that was kind of in the back of my head, that, you know, that you're better off when you make more, keep spending what you were spending previously. And then do something with the additional money that you have at that point. And so that was, that was probably for me. And I've read so many books. I've also, I've also was just recently listening to a speaker that I listened to, and he was actually saying how, you know, he's not impressed by people that read books. And most people will say, I read, 12 books last year, but they're still doing the same things.
Right.
And so it's like you haven't applied any of it, which is, it's so true. But that was, and I'm not going to lie, I've also been a victim of that too. I've read a lot of books over the years and haven't applied a lot of the principles, but that is the one book where that's always, and it's been over 20 years since I've read that. And so that was the one book for me. Yeah.
That's a solid book. And even I follow Robert Kiyosaki on social media. Mm-hmm. I mean, he still puts out some powerful stuff. He's got just a great head on his shoulders and good practical application. Yep. Always reading his stuff with going, okay, what of this am I actually going to execute in my life? Yeah. Because I'm on a journey I want to become more of a reader. And this year, my goal is to read 26 books. Wow. I want to read one every 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'm a little behind right now, but I'm going like one real book and then one audio book.
Okay.
So I'm giving myself a little bit of leeway with that. And I just read your wife's book, which was a quick read. Great book. His wife's name's Romy Cage. A little plug if you want to
check it out.
Check on Amazon, get her book. But so that was a good short read. So, but I counted that one.
Absolutely.
So
that's absolutely. Yeah.
It was a good.
Get caught back up.
That's right. Good, inspiring read. But yeah, it's the question of what am I going to take from this and actually integrate into my life.
It's important.
Because if I'm just reading and just to check it off a list, I'm wasting time.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not for entertainment.
Right.
These books. I mean, if you want to read it, then read a novel or read like a fiction story if you want entertainment. But yeah, if you're, it's I've actually gone the other way. I've slowed down reading for that reason because I want to try to like read something and try to apply it.
Yeah.
And so. Because when he said that, I was like, man, he's right. I have read a lot of books and haven't done much with it, and so it's difficult, but I think it's important to to try to integrate it into our lives as what we're reading. Yeah,
those books and education should lead to a transformed life. Yeah. If not, why? Why even do it? Curveball question. I didn't tell you I was going to ask this, but I'm going to ask this. It's an easy one. At least I think it's an easy one. Who's the greatest of all time? Basketball.
Oh, it's MJ.
MJ.
North Carolina. So you're a North Carolina boy. So there's not even for me. It's not a debate. There's no question.
For the stats, it's not really even a debate.
No.
You look at the stats and it's like, there's just no.
Yeah.
And the amount of rise that he brought to everybody around him, was just a huge deal. So, is he your favorite basketball player of all time?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. No question. He got to meet him. I got to work at his camp in '96. So after I graduated high school, I got to work at his camp. That was after they won their 4th championship too, as well. And so this is great. Still like in his heyday, but that was like a dream. Yeah, that was a dream come true.
Right on. And then last question: top 3 influences in your life.
Probably it's definitely my mom.
Yeah,
because without her, I couldn't have made it through college and even professionally as long as I did. Just not having her to draw from her strength and that she exhibited, and then after that would be probably my college, probably all of my college coaches, definitely my head coach. Just because even though it was, he almost became like because I really didn't have a lot of positive male role models growing up, except for coaches, and so and then he was the one that I spent the most. I spent 5 years with them in college, and so he was definitely a really big influence that still, like, I thanked him. I talked to him like 7 years ago. And just thanked him for for everything. I hated him when I was 19. I hated him, but as a 30-year-old or 40-year-old, I was like really appreciative of him and for everything that he did. And then after that was probably Michael Jordan. Just to see the way that he played through everything. He never took games off or days off. He practiced also, even though he was the best player in the world, and he would still practice, and he'd go out and he'd dominate like in conditioning drills still when he's MJ, and so that was also a really big influence for me as well.
Yeah, that level of dedication, something that you don't find very often in anybody. It's inspiring. So inspiring.
Yeah, and so that way I was just so fortunate to grow up being able to watch him and then see what he did. I can remember, like as a senior in college, there was a freshman that was trying to get me to sit out of practice, and I was like, if there was a game today, I'd play, so I'm going to practice. And he was like, man, that's awesome. And then he ended up kind of following that, and he became a captain himself of the team his last 2 years, and then went overseas as well and had a successful career too. And he always kind of thanked me for that, for instilling that in him, that drive and that work ethic. And so, but yeah, I got that from MJ.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, Eddie, man, I appreciate you being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you guys watching. If you want more information about what we do, integratedministries.life or integratedmasculinity.life, you can find out tons of information about us and the podcast and all that stuff, what we do. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.